Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Gretchen Smutney, and I am a contract employee with the Data Science program with the Division of Professional Studies. And I want to welcome you to UMBC and the LAPT program open house. We want to remind everybody that we are holding a very special raffle for the open house scholarship bonus at the conclusion of the PowerPoint presentation. But before we do Q&A, you must be present during the live drawing in order to be eligible to win. We hope you enjoy the presentation. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to the Graduate Program Director, Mr. Greg Williams.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Glad you're here. So I'm the director of the program. I have been the director of the program for about, I think it's 18 or 19 years, not quite 20 yet. So I'm pretty familiar with it. And I'm always excited to talk to people who are interested in the program, students, that sort of thing. So, all right. So there's me. I'm the director of the program. I also, I'm not just the director of the program, but I'm a faculty member in the program. I've taught. I normally teach the internship course and the career courses, career-related courses, the portfolio, and the capstone course. So I've taught a bunch of courses over the years. So, I'm not just an administrator, I'm actually a faculty member and serve as the primary advisor for the program as well for people. So what are we going to do tonight? Well, we're going to talk about the curriculum, both of, certificates and the masters. We'll talk about admissions. We'll talk about hallmarks of the program. We'll talk about student services. We'll talk about cost. People are always interested in cost. And anything else you want to talk about, that's fine. So our approach. So this program actually, it is debatable. No one's refuted me on this, but I have it on good faith that this is the first master's program at UMBC. It was originally proposed as a Master's of Education, and then University of Maryland College Park objected to that, and we had to go back to the drawing board. And the graduate program director at the time, Dr. Marvin Cook, he said, well, I'm going to call it Instructional Systems Development, and that got improved. And of course, things changed over time. We've changed the name to Learning and Performance Technology to focus on the new performance aspect to training and learning, because it's often said that only about 20% of the problems in an organization can be solved by training. So that means you have to do other things. You can't just create courses. That can be good, but that's not going to save the world. There's other things that courses can't do. So our approach is very hands-on. It's applied. Our students are working graduate students for the most part. They are about 95% of them have full-time jobs. A lot of them, some of them, to a lesser extent, will have part-time jobs. And the average age is about 40. We have about 60% women in the program and about 40% male. So, 40, that's obviously older than a traditional graduate student. And one of the things that, our students actually bring to the program, which is great, is, their experience. They actually have experience that they can share with us. And it's very exciting to work with them because they usually have some very specific things they want to work on. Our model is, applied learning. Research is great, and we believe in research, but we like applied learning. So the model that we use is a model where you work on actual projects that you would in the real world. We don't have tests. We don't have that sort of thing because, as somebody once said to me, have you ever taken a test at work, Greg? And I was like, no, I never have. So that's our model. We want to have hands-on, we want it to be career-oriented, and we want students to be able to create a portfolio of work samples that they can use to get jobs, to get promotions, that sort of thing. So why learning and performance technology? Well, there are some reasons why we think that, we do a pretty good job at this. One is the reputation. Our program has been around since the 1960s. So arguably, we are the oldest program in the country. But we're not old and decrepit. We're changing and growing and evolving. So our reputation's out there. People know of us, which can be helpful for career-related reasons. We take the applied approach, as I just mentioned. We, like to involve students where, as Dr. Cook, who created the program, he was fond of saying, I want to teach them something on a Wednesday night, and then Thursday morning at work, they're able to apply it. So we still do that. It is for working adults. Dr. Cook, this is again over 50 years ago. He wanted to focus on working adults. Back in like 1968, 1969, that just wasn't done all that much. Most of the graduate programs were for traditional age graduate students. They were not working adults. So Dr. Cook was way ahead of his time back then. And, that's still our population, working adults. As I mentioned a bit earlier, we do work on projects as our deliverables. So you'll be creating projects that you'll be able to use in the real world, so to speak. And actually, you'll be working with real life clients beginning with your first course. So we try to make it as relatable to the real world as possible. Most graduate programs have, in addition to the coursework, have a requirement, which is usually a comprehensive exam. It's not the only way. And for many years, we had a comprehensive exam. And our thoughts were, well, that's fine, but there's probably better ways to assess their learning. So we created the portfolio. So you do your coursework and you do a portfolio. You use a lot of the coursework to actually, be models that you can, attach and include in your portfolio. But the benefits of the portfolio is there are a number of jobs out there where they want to see samples of your work. So the portfolio is very handy in that regard. You can use your portfolio to get promotions. And we think it just makes a lot of sense as opposed to somebody taking an exam and then it getting graded pass or fail. And then, that's it. You don't deal with it again. So we think the portfolio, we changed that roughly, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. It might have been just about 10 years ago. And everybody thought that was a good idea, including myself. Our faculty, there's a lot of things I do in relation to this program. We could have, really great ways to order textbooks. We could have great advising systems. But if we don't hire the right faculty, that's a big issue. Not that books aren't important and things like that, but if we hire the wrong faculty, that's a problem. Our faculty are practitioners in the field. So they are instructional designers, they're training folks, they're performance improvement folks, they're learning and development folks, okay? So they love what they do, and then they bring that knowledge, skills, and experience to us in the classrooms, okay? So this is not a program where you have faculty that are in that ivory tower and thinking about these lofty, abstract research projects. This is kind of real life, hands-on, career-oriented master's degree, an applied program, okay? Molly, Helen, are you folks in one of the certificate programs, or are you in the graduate program? Are you thinking, which ones are you thinking about?
I was thinking about graduate program. Oh, I'm
Right.
sorry, Helen.
No, that's okay. Me as well. Graduate program.
Okay, so the master's. Okay, very good. So our program is not like, there are some cookie cutter programs where everybody takes all the exact same courses. Engineering's kind of famous for this, nursing's famous for this, but we have electives. So out of your 10 courses, 3 of those can be electives. So you could have some flexibility within your own program. Also on your assignments, you have flexibility in terms of your assignments where they're broad enough to cover the assignment, but they can kind of maybe meet, some of your personal needs where, you might say, well, I want to work on a program, work on a project that relates to, helping students, teach students with disabilities online. How do you do that? So you can kind of tailor a lot of your class projects to meet your own needs. So again, this is geared toward the individual needs of the students, within reason, but you do have some choice and flexibility. Um, the admission process. The admission process is pretty straightforward. What the graduate school is looking for when a master's candidate applies is they are looking for a solid undergraduate B average, roughly around a 3.0. And if you have that, you pretty much will get accepted. Okay. If you have less than that, if somebody has like a 2.5 or something like that, there are ways that we can work with you. I'm kind of known for that in the graduate admissions office, where we could have you start out in the certificate program. And if you get an A or a B in your courses, then I can petition to have you accepted. I have been successful in that pretty much every time, because what I tell the dean of the graduate school is, well, they've proven they can do the graduate work. They've already taken a couple of courses in the certificate program, which would then count towards the master's, and I recommend that they get admitted to the master's program. So that's what they're looking for in terms of admission. So our program, what is it based on? Well, essentially, it is based on the Association for Talent Development. They've developed a competency model that addresses a lot of different things, not just instructional design, but performance improvement, training delivery, learning technologies. There's a whole host of them. And we address a lot of these, not every single one. But so our curriculum is well founded. It is a curriculum that's, rooted in solid research. ATD did a lot of work on this study. It took them a number of years and a lot of money to put this together. So this is where we get the basis for, what we teach and how we teach it. If you want to learn more about the ATD competency model, you can go online to their website and then see it. It's pretty impressive, actually. I think it is. All right, so let's take a look. So if you went to their web page, you'd be able to see. So, all right, instructional design, what does that include? Then it lays out what you need to do in terms of developing, skills and gaining knowledge from instructional design. You can explode the pie chart there for training delivery, performance improvement, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we got our curriculum from. We just didn't make it up. So the master's program is 7 required courses and 3 elective. If somebody starts out with the certificate program, that can count towards the master's. Okay, so we do have a number of people do that. So you might know some people that are interested in, furthering their professional education, but they're not quite sure if they need a master's or want a master's. Well, a lot of them could take, the 4th course certificate, their graduate courses, same rigor, same textbook, same faculty, etc. And we have a lot of people that start out in the certificate program. They take that and then they say, I kind of like this. And a master's degree is only 6 more courses beyond, the 4 I took in the graduate certificate program. So a lot of people do that. All right, so certificate programs, we have several of them. We'll take a look at them. Oops, going the wrong way. So there's instructional systems development. That's one certificate program. There's instructional technology, e-learning, and then the learning and performance technology. Right now, the most popular one is the instructional systems development graduate certificate. And these certificates actually appear as a credential on your transcript, because some people think, well, because certificate's a funny word in education. There are graduate level certificates like we have, and there are some certificates that, you get and, you sit in the ballroom of the Holiday Inn and some interesting speaker talks about how to deal with difficult people or some helpful topic perhaps. And, you sit there and you listen, you're entertained, you get some information, and then they give you a certificate. You didn't actually have to perform, you didn't have to take a test or complete a project, but they give you a certificate. So the word certificate for us is it's a graduate level credential, so it's kind of a big deal. Our program has always been very much career oriented. When Dr. Marvin Cook created the program, over 50 years ago, that was his goal. That has remained the same all these years by design. Not that we didn't have other thoughts, but when I first took over the program in 2004, I made it my mission to find out, well, is the program in good shape? Is it doing what we want to? What our student needs? And by and large, everybody that I talk to, from employers to current students to alumni to faculty, I all got pretty much the same message, that students really wanted a career-oriented program. They wanted a program that addressed, excuse me, their professional needs. They wanted a program that would maybe qualify them to do a career change. They wanted a more meaningful career. They wanted a career where they could provide impact, but it was all about jobs and careers. That has remained the same. That really hasn't changed at all, really. So two of the hallmarks of the program, again, are choice and flexibility. And again, these are reflected in the electives. So out of the 10 courses for the master's, 3 are electives where you can have a choice. And then again, within your courses, you'll work on projects, and you have a lot of flexibility within those projects to kind of, tailor the assignment to maybe address some of your needs that, are important for you, because adult learners are very self-directed, and they want to know what's in this for me, right? All right, so here's my friend Calvin. This used to be a comic strip. The author has retired, but I don't know if you remember Calvin. I do. I'm not sure if other people remember Calvin, but Calvin was not a test taker. So why don't you take a minute just to read this real quickly? Thank you, Molly. Yes. I love the fact that Calvin thought that Chef Boyardee was the first president of the United States. So Calvin's not big on testing. Well, guess what? We aren't either, because we don't have tests in our program. We have projects. So this is Dr. Thiagi. Dr. Thiagi is a man who's very popular in our field, in the field of learning and development, instructional design. He used to be a tenured professor in the instructional design program at the University of Indiana in Bloomington, and he started doing consulting, and his consulting became so popular and he was in such demand that he quit his job at the University of Indiana and he became a full-time independent consultant. He has spoken here several times at UMBC, and he's one of those rare people that is both entertaining and educational. That's kind of a rare combination, I think. So he asked me one time, he said, "Greg, do you take tests at work?" And I had to think for about 2 seconds, and I said, "Dr. Thiagi, I have never taken a test at work." He said, "Precisely. So why do we force adult students to take tests? Because that's really not the best way to evaluate them. It's really how they apply the information. And that's what we do here. We apply the information." All right, so here we go. This is what our project-based learning might look like. Our program, of course, is online, and project-based learning is kind of what we do, I think, in every single class we have, with the exception of perhaps one class. And these are projects that when you can complete them, they can be part of your professional portfolio that you can use to help you get jobs, promotions. If you're doing independent consulting, oftentimes the prospective client wants to see samples of your work, and this is a great way to do it. So we are firm believers in project-based learning. There are field experiences where from the very first course you'll have real clients, okay? It's not like academic case studies. These are real clients with real needs. and you will have a capstone course, okay? And you can complete that in a number of different ways. If somebody wants to have like a capstone experience where they're actually like, doing an internship sort of thing at the employer's office, that's fine. You could do it like as a consulting approach where you map out the goals and deliverables of the project and then where you actually work. A lot of times it's virtual. So, we try to be as flexible as possible to meet the needs of the adults. And I think those are two of our probably most popular characteristics of our program, the choice and flexibility. Portfolio, I've mentioned that a bit, and we think it's very important because then it provides evidence of a student's competencies where they can actually, clients can actually see, prospective employers can actually, not just hear from them what they've done, but they can see examples. Mentoring, we don't have a formal mentoring program, but we do a very good job at, I think, working with students that, might need support outside of the classroom. I work with a number of students, as a mentor, and we have faculty that work as informal mentors. It's not a formal program, but, sometimes when you work with students, they'll, talk about things. It's like, I've had some students ask me, I think I'm kind of being taken advantage of at work. My boss quit and now I'm having to do his job plus my job, and my next level manager doesn't seem to care. Well, what do I do? So some of these things come up and we like to help whenever we can. And we just feel that that's, the right thing to do. Our faculty, I've mentioned them before, but our faculty are practitioners in the field. They are learning and development specialists. They're instructional designers. They are trainers. They are training managers. They're independent consultants. And a number of them have actually graduated from the program. So those folks are obviously very familiar with the program, how the program is structured, how the courses fit together, and so forth. Student services. Obviously, the big thing with an academic program is the program itself, but there's a service component. So we like to try to make sure that the services that we provide are meeting students' needs, because taking the courses, that's part of your experience, but also part of your experience is the student services, and we like to think that we provide good services. Now we are a state institution, so we're a bureaucracy, and bureaucracies are not always perfect in terms of how they operate, but we do try hard to make your overall experience a positive one here at UMBC. So costs. So let's take a look at the cost. So the current tuition and fees for a Maryland resident is about $2,500 a course, okay? For non-residents, it's roughly double, okay, if you're out of state, okay? Books, there are some courses that have no books, like I teach the capstone course, there are no required books, and faculty do a pretty good job of keeping the cost of books down, roughly about $100 a course. So one of the good things that happened concerning cost is we got the approval to have our program be priced at the in-state fee. So if somebody is a resident of Delaware or the District of Columbia, they get the in-state tuition. If they live in Northern Virginia and those, I don't know if you call those municipalities, or some of them are counties. So like, Arlington, Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, Falls Church, basically Northern Virginia, you see, they get the same in-state tuition. Even though they might live in Falls Church, they can get the Maryland tuition, okay? In Pennsylvania, to a lesser extent, if you live in Adams, York, or Lancaster, again, you get the in-state Maryland. So we think that's a big deal. All right. the U.S. Department of Labor, ranks people in the training, business and instructional design, instructional technology as a bright job outlook. That means there's going to be, hopefully a good amount of jobs. That's what they're projecting, and that's what a lot of people, come to us for. They want to, get a new career and do a career change, or they want to enhance their current career. So the job outlook is pretty bright. Here are some potential career paths somebody could take: instructional designer to a senior instructional designer or a project manager. You could also go the instructional design and then move up to a management position to be, training manager and director of training. And then, of course, there's something called a chief learning officer, which is like a C-level job that they overlook all the learning that an organization would take on. Salaries. This information I'm seeing that's 2017, so I have to update that a little better. So I think those are a little bit higher, probably about 5 or 6% higher at least since the last time. So there's work out there. There's jobs out there in this field. So I've covered a lot of material, and I want to kind of slow it down to wrap up here. So again, why learning performance technology at UMBC? Well, our reputation is out there. A lot of people know about us, especially in this area of, Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, suburban Maryland, Baltimore. Helpful for careers. We take an applied approach. This is not theoretical. It's designed for working adults. Dr. Cook designed it that way over 50 years ago. The program is still for working adults. That has not changed. We like to do hands-on practical projects that you would do with real clients if you were, working at an organization, or if you were, let's say, an independent consultant. We have a portfolio approach. This is helpful because there are a number of organizations that when they hire, they would like to see samples of your work. So this enables you to do that very, very easily. Our faculty, our practitioners, they deal with this stuff every day. They are not academics. They are practitioners. So now is that special time in the program where we do the live drawing. Ta-da!
All right, so before we proceed with the question and answer portion, I'm going to reach down here and grab my handy duty little bag so that you guys can both be in here. Mally and Helen, I'm just going to go ahead and reach in. I'm not looking to just pull out a name. And I don't know if you can see it. Miss Helen, you are our winner, and I see that you are present. So within a business day, Stephanie Allen, who's the assistant director for the OPP program, will be in touch for you to get your $200 scholarship. So congratulations, and thank you both for participating. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Greg now for any questions or answers that you all may have for him.
Okay, thank you. So now is for discussion. I couldn't say that properly. Discussion, questions. If you do apply, you can get your application fee waived by using this DPS 2023 code. Okay. So what questions do you have, ladies? Don't tell me I've covered every possible thing.
No, that was a great presentation, Greg. I guess my question was surrounding tuition.
Right.
If at any point there's a good chance I may move in state to Maryland, so could I still qualify for an in-state tuition rate?
They get pretty particular on that because some of the documents they ask you for is like a tax return, and typically that wouldn't maybe be active for you until like the following year.
Okay.
And they might ask to see like a like your current driver's license, things like that. But if you go to our website under admissions, it kind of details what you need to do. But there usually is a little bit of a more of a lag than maybe some people would like. I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to So I mean, have people done it? Of course they've done it, but it usually takes them some time um, to get that like effective. And some of the key documents tend to be they'll ask for like, well, where did you file your last tax return? What state was that? And then if you have a driver's license, which state does that reflect on? So it might take a semester or two for some people, depending on the time they start this process, for that in-state thing to kind of kick in.
Okay, thanks.
So my question, I guess, is a little more personal one. I'm kind of at a crossroads with where I am professionally. I have been teaching elementary to middle school. I discovered between doing all the COVID and all that stuff that I really do enjoy the instructional, like the creating work, like creating like plans and creating documentation
Right.
to to help even help my colleagues, to help teach them how to use the different platforms, between Google Meets and Zooms and this and that and all the stuff that we had thrown at
Right.
us. So which is why I'm kind of veering more towards trying to take this path and like instructional technology and just learning more about whether or not that's the path going forward. And I saw the slide and I saw that for careers, you have it like at this level for this program that you have that they are already established as instructional designers and already established, and they're just trying to, I guess, move forward into a higher position. How do you think this, like, what do you think it'll be for someone who hasn't been in that position and trying to actually
Right.
start in that
Yeah.
position?
If I gave you the impression that every one of our master students already is like in the field, that's not the case. There are a lot of people that come from actually your background, come from like say from a K through 12 teaching environment. And then I've had a lot of people tell me over the years like, yep, I liked my first 5 years of teaching third grade, but then I realized I don't want to do this for like 25 years.
Mhm.
And so we have a fair amount of people that kind of make that transition. And so there is a mix of people that, are more experienced with the people that are newer, but we actually have a fair amount of people in our program who come from K through 12 and don't have a background in instructional design. So, you would be more of the norm than the exceptions, because
Okay.
we get people from Fortune 500 companies. We get people who are independent consultants. We get people who are government employees, federal, state, local. We get people from nonprofits and universities. And some of them have some, it's interesting because a lot of people sometimes will say, well, I really know instructional design, so I don't understand why you're making me take this course. And then we give them an option to kind of like test out of it.
Mhm.
And it's very rare that students kind of make it through that, because they usually think they know more than they do. So, and a lot of people, we get a fair amount of people who come to us, you're right, that are already in the field and they've never had a credential, an academic credential in the field. And, maybe they want to get that because that's important to them personally. Maybe they're starting a consulting business and those credentials oftentimes look good for potential clients. So that's kind of where we are with that. So, a fair amount of, you would be similar to a lot of people in our programming. We have people that have undergraduate majors from accounting to zoology, A to Z. And we view it as a strength. We view the diversity as a strength because you can be sitting in the same classroom with people who work at, for-profit corporations, nonprofits, community groups, and, they can talk to each other and say, well, yeah, how do you handle that in corporate America? Or how do you handle that in K through 12? How do you handle that at the nonprofit that you work at? So we kind of view that as a strength.
Okay. That's great. I just, it was kind of like, I didn't want to dive off the deep end and be like, oh, maybe I should have started at a, like you were mentioning earlier,
Well,
like a certificate
know,
level. But it's very comforting to know that I will not be alone.
yeah, I mean, we do get some people like that, but not a lot. You know, you'd be more of the type of student that we get, because we do get a fair amount of people that start out as classroom teachers, like say K through 12,
Mhm.
and then they realize that, I like this, but I like other things too that still relate to training and
Yeah.
education and
Mhm.
teaching and curriculum design, but I don't want to be a kindergarten teacher for 25 years, which is fine.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
I don't know how kindergarten teachers do it. That would be an impossible job. And, then teaching those little kids online, I have no idea how kindergarten teachers do that. Any other
Thanks. Thanks,
questions?
Greg. No, I just want to say that's nice to hear. I'm not a teacher, but I work in tech. So yeah, that's great. I love the diversity. You can always learn something new from someone else. So that's encouraging. I just had one more question, specifically about this program's called Lab, right? So it seems that there's some focus on the performance technology, which I find very interesting, and different from a lot of other ID programs out there. And
Right.
so I'd love to kind of just learn more about like how that's integrated into your program.
Yeah, because, we think we are headed in the direction where the field is going, because even the American Society of Training Development, now called Association for Talent Development, their own research showed that only 20% of problems within an organization can be solved by training. So, you can't train your way out of every problem that an organization runs into. So we realized that, like, instructional designers, they do an assessment first, and then they get to the point to say, okay, we've identified the problem. Now, what do we do to solve it? And probably about 99% of the time, they would say training, whether it was the appropriate solution or not. Why did they say that? Well, they knew how to create training. They knew how to design. They knew how to create training. They knew how to deliver it. But what if the solution that was needed was not training? Well, that's where the performance improvement comes in, okay? And that's what we're focusing on, in addition to so the instructional design part will still be there with our program. The performance improvement that we've added, that's the new component, because, you might have managers come to you in the training department and say, I have people that aren't performing like they should, and I think they need training. Well, how do you know they need training? And it's like, well, that's how you make people better. You give them training. Well, that might not be the case. They might not have the proper tools. They might not have, the incentives. In some cases, it's like, somebody might work shoulder to shoulder with somebody. One guy, works super hard, does a great job. The other guy barely pulls his own weight. They both get the same evaluation and same raise. So why does the one guy want to work really hard? I mean, putting the other guy through training won't really change his behavior, because it's not a training issue. So that's what we're trying to focus on. We're trying to focus on giving people the internal consulting skills and other options that could, because the ultimate goal of training in organizations is to perform, change behavior, improve performance. It's not just knowledge. Corporations don't train people because it's like a fun thing to do. They do it because they want to see performance improvement. They want to see better results. So that's what I think we've done with our program. If you want to do some research on it, just research HPI, human performance improvement, or human performance technology. And human performance technology, if you look at that word technology, it's not computer technology, but it's technology in terms of how do you take something and apply it to solve problems, okay? How do you take something and apply it where problems can be solved, performance problems? And that's kind of where we're going. And that's why we, changed the curriculum a little bit not wholesale, but change the name of the program, because we're more than instructional. I mean, instructional design is like this, and then there's training, and then there's learning and development. So instructional design, we haven't gotten rid of it. We still have that. So what we're doing in terms of performance improvement is in addition to what we've always done with instructional design. Instructional design remains our most popular graduate certificate as well too. So that's a long answer to a short question. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It was a great answer. Yeah, that's kind of why I'm looking at the program. So that explains a lot. And then for like, in terms of like credentials for like performance improvement, like, is there additional like work that would need to be done, or like, what does a degree kind of like give you the credentials to do that type of skill? I guess I'm just not sure like what type of
Right.
credential you may need to
Yeah.
do that work. Yeah.
There isn't one strong professional organization where it's like the go-to place to get the credential. So like there's the International Society for Performance Improvement, ISPI. They are headquartered here in Maryland. They have a credential that they issue, but it's very rare that people in our field say, oh, well, you don't have, this credential, so you can't do this work. It's not like, as strict as like, a certified public accountant where you take a test and so forth. It's a lot more loose from a professional perspective. And, there are, I think, different professional associations that are kind of vying for that market. So there isn't like one kind of go-to credential, like in human resources, a lot of the SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, they're like known as, all right, this is the go-to place you go when you want some HR certifications. There isn't one single organization like that for our field,
Okay.
which
Okay, thank
presents problems and benefits sometimes, depending on how you look
you.
at
I
it.
look at it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So while you're thinking of more questions, perhaps, that is my contact information, gregw@umbc.edu, and then that's my cell phone, okay? Nobody answers my phone for me. I answer my phone. That's my cell phone. This is part of, I think, how we're different, where if you looked at a lot of our competitors, they would never on their website list who the graduate program director is. They wouldn't list a personal email. They wouldn't list any phone, let alone a personal cell phone. We've had people transfer from, I'm not going to name them, but they said, we couldn't get to talk to people that ran the program. We would talk to administrators who never set foot in the program and were just trying to get us to, apply. So, our program, I've run the program for nearly 20 years, and you can talk to me directly just like you're doing tonight. All right, if there's no more questions, I think we can kind of wrap it up.
Great. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Gretchen.
Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks
Call
for
me or
your time.
contact me. All right, see you, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.